All right, it is September 2nd, and I'm going to do a quick garden tour. It has been pretty hot, pretty dry, but I'm just going to show you what we got in all of its glorious messiness. We have anise hyssop with lots of bee action. Still, you can see there are a lot of spent blooms, or blooms that are being spent, and still yet the bees are dancing around our little gnome here, hitting the fresher flowers. Very nice. This is a bed of super duper Paradiso echinacea. Beautiful blooms. This one isn't doing quite as well, but still very pretty blooms. This one is trying to double deck in a few spots, but not doing well. Gladiolas bloomed great back in the summer, and now they're just hanging out. Columbines are kind of tired, not enjoying the heat, but hanging on. Purple passion asparagus, first year plants, growing quite nicely. Most of them are up around 5 foot tall or more. More purple passion. Have a new electric fence charger. Got a premier one going on. I wiped out this wild black raspberry that was in here on this little wire trellis. It was just an absolute monster, growing everywhere. Absolute pain. Not a fan of trying to get back here to the fence charger and fighting my way between this asparagus and that raspberry. So I just pulled it out. I'm going to dig it up later and replant probably some irises or something in here that won't get in the way to get to the fence charger. Coniferous colossal asparagus. I tried a little bit of it this year. It's second year plants now. I shouldn't have done this. Grapevine. I need to get this trellised, obviously. My plan was to have a trellis from that post over to this post and have a grapevine up in the air above my strawberries. And I just never got around to putting the wire up, but the grape has grown absolutely a ton. I mean, 12 feet, and I've cut off a whole bunch of branches. Old North Sea strawberries, I'm going to have to thin a whole bunch and throw them away. Got some pretty good strawberries earlier. This is supposed to be a Mars grape if it came true to label. I haven't had great luck with this. This row of asparagus is just really high. It's a mix of Jersey Giant and Mary Washington, I think. Got some really cheap crowns from Walmart and pretty happy with how they did. We got our first harvest this year as third year plants, and man, they were fantastic. I am glad. I've planted way too much asparagus. This isn't all of it. I've got some more up in the other row I'll show you here in a second, but man, I really like asparagus and I'm happy they're producing well. Long red Chinese long beans. We let a bunch of them get too big. I'm saving a bunch for seed. We're going to experiment with them as dry beans, dry cowpeas, and see how they go. They're technically a cowpea. I need to come in here and pick some more of these dry pods. I'm going to do a separate video on them. My trellis posts fell over, and my tomatoes have more or less taken a break because of the absolute heat. It has been so hot here lately. We finally got a bit of a break this week with some nice temperatures, but it hit like 115, 118 heat index for like 5 days, 6 days, 7 days in a row. And man, that was hard on everything. Sunflowers are looking really pretty. A lot of them are trying to fall over and dry up at this point. You can see they're starting to get where you can get in there to the seeds. If it'll quit moving. Those are seeds I saved from last year. Sweet potato from a friend, Alexa Blandford Lane, is getting out of control, but the slips have just grown really, really well. Looking forward to digging up and seeing what we get there. Onions, these are Norwegian potato onions in this row. I've harvested quite a few already. There are a few more I need to come in here and harvest. There's a nice clump of them. That's a good size of onions. Peonies are chilling at this point, just holding on, looking kind of rough, but they're doing okay. These lilies smelled so incredibly good earlier this year. I mean, they just had a smell that would almost knock you over. Very good smell. Before I get to the other side of the garden, come over here. This air prune bed, I'm growing flowers in it. One echinacea plant has died. It bloomed, it was doing great, and then it just died. We have sweet williams, a few echinaceas that managed to sprout in this bed. After I planted, there was a huge rain. It washed a bunch of seeds out. Snapdragons grew like crazy. There's some flax. There is some blanket flower hiding in here. And this is lavage, which I'm looking forward to. I tried an experiment of growing sweet potatoes in this bucket. They're not doing as well as in the bed, but they'll be much easier to dig. Gooseberries are doing quite well. This is an interesting story. This is a fig tree. I pruned all of our fig trees and then buried the stems down on the bottom just to get rid of them and of this terrace whenever I was filling it in, just to get rid of them and just fill in this bed a little bit. Just saved me a little bit of dirt and compost to put in here. And yeah, they held on and one of them sprouted and is growing a tree. Gooseberries did very good in this bed. I'm very excited. We got to taste Captivator, I believe it was. Captivator, yeah, Captivator. Here we are doing another 2 terraces. This is just for gooseberries and currants as well. I'm trying to cover the dirt and put in as I go. I have how I fill all my beds in. There's some hay and weeds that dried out, some charcoal, and then rabbit manure and compost on top of that. And then I put dirt on top and kind of use that as a core center for the stuff to grow down to and really take off. The gooseberries in this bed have really enjoyed that. This air prune bed, these are some mulberry seedlings that I got from a tree behind the church building. Here are some gooseberry and yostaberry and black currant cuttings. They are not nearly as happy in this bed as these peach trees. I made a mistake and planted these gooseberry cuttings too tight to that peach tree row. I didn't think I was going to have that much success with the peach trees. And I'm not sure, excuse me, this tree right here is up over 3 feet tall already. Lots of them, you know, around 2.5 foot, somewhere in there. So looking forward to giving some of those away, maybe trying to sell one. This one right here, all by its lonesome in this little row. You can see the others are in a row back here. And no, maybe, there you go. Those are all kind of more or less in a row. And then this one is all by itself. This one is a seedling from that peach tree over there, which gave us the best peach I've ever tasted. It's a seedling tree dug up from somewhere else, and man, it was fantastic. Showed no problems with brown rot. I don't know if that's normal or if it's going to have issues later, but it's worth putting in a daughter tree from that tree. Tulips are planted in here, but I've put in some daylilies. The tulips did not do very well. This plant is kind of struggling. Here's a fairy house. I think the roof blew off of it from the kids. This is a red black-eyed Susan. Pretty little plant whenever it's doing well. It kind of lodged after a really bad storm earlier in the year. I've got a lot of seeds in my office that I haven't screened or anything like that. I'm going to try to get some more of that going. Some more hyssop. I don't know if you can see the bees and the moths working this hyssop. I am so glad I put hyssop in the garden to draw in pollinators. I have squash plants. They were supposed to be Black Beauty zucchinis, and last year I grew Black Beauties as the only peppos and flat white boar pumpkins as the only maximas in the garden, and they're not really supposed to cross, is what I was told. And unfortunately they did. I'll show you the freaks that we're getting off of them. There's a rose in here, a peace rose. glowthorns, beautiful roses. This is like my favorite rose, beautiful colors. This echinacea is supposed to be a double decker that isn't double decking, but you can see I've taken a lot of blooms off of this, and it's just, it bloomed an incredible amount right here in this clump. One of my fancy striped roses died right here. More hyssop, a wild blue yonder rose that grows like it's sitting on top of a nuclear waste site or something. It just grows an incredible amount and doesn't bloom as much as I want. You can see this is all one plant. It's kind of half vining, half not. It's not really a true vining. And I'll show you a bigger one here in a second, but this is what we're getting. So it's pretty much a straight up cross between a zucchini and a flat white pumpkin. They're kind of grayish, greenish white. Big and ribbed and lumpy on the end with like a zucchini neck. So they still taste good. The skin's a little tougher than a regular zucchini from the pumpkin side of it, but we've been cutting them up and stir frying them, and they are really good to eat. Not as good as a Black Beauty, but good enough to eat. So I had to buy some more seed for next year. Honeyberries have held on through all this heat, not defoliated as they can do, but we got some off of them this spring. Looking forward to getting some more. A surprise thing I'm a fan of in the garden this year was thornless blackberries. I was not a big fan of put them in kind of on a whim, because blackberries grow really good wild around here, just really fantastic. And yeah, they exploded in growth, and we got quite a bit of berries this year. Last year they just grew. This year the kids really liked them. I'm not a huge fan. If I can get a ripe one, they're good, but still, they're not as good as a raspberry. We'll get to the raspberries here in a second. These Armenian yard-long cucumbers were put in quite late, and they just got recently picked, so I don't even know if there's one in here. Here are some rattlesnake beans. I never get in here and pick them. We've had too many long beans to mess with regular green beans, so I've been letting them go for dry beans. I need to come in here and pick some of these. I did not put in Good Mother Stallard beans this year. I was planning on it and just never got around to it, and I'm sad I didn't. I'm going to try to make room for more of them next year because we really like them. This chamomile's gotten in the way, spilled out into the paths. I'm not happy with it. I'm going to try to move it in the winter time. No cucumber. There's a baby cucumber down on the bottom. Somebody's going to miss that one. That one is hard to see. But there's a baby Armenian yard-long. They will get big, and they don't get bad as quickly as regular cucumbers. They're actually a melon that just tastes and acts like a cucumber, but very good. We really enjoy them. Here are some regular long beans, Chinese long beans, that are green, and this is what they look like when they dry out. Kind of a whitish yellow. Gonna plant mostly all reds. There's a slight flavor difference, but nobody can really put their finger on what it is. So we are just going to plant the reds because they're way easier to keep track of. Here is another surprise star of this year. We've had this Ann raspberry bush for quite some time, 3 years or so. And I actually put a little bed around it to put another raspberry plant in from my Aunt Becky's house. And the Ann responded great to actually getting some care and a decent amount of mulch and some some compost instead of just terrible bad dirt that I put it in originally. And so these little yellow raspberries are flavor bombs. I love them. Very sweet. Still a little tart. Excellent. This butterfly bush is very pretty. Gotta be working it up here if he'll show up. Not nearly as popular as the hyssop, but blooms over and over and over again. These are some irises I transplanted from the old log cabin on the place. Roxbury russet I passed up. Has a few apples on it this year. I need to just do a separate apple video, but I'll probably wait till I have some more apple varieties. We got some off of this little tree, not good apples. It's a wild apple seedling from Kazakhstan. Very disappointing. This is a Grimes Golden. Beautiful little ugly green apple. Here are some more echinaceas. These are just regular paradisos. And this color is fading really bad, but you can see what the color has been. Very pretty orange. This is a very pretty, I don't know, red of some sort. There is a cool little spider hanging out on that one. This is like a cream yellow echinacea. Snapdragons, they bloomed really well previously. This upper row all has Atlas asparagus planted in it. Atlas is supposed to be the most productive asparagus variety out there. It's an F1 hybrid, but it's a perennial. It's going to live 30 years probably. Who really cares if it's a hybrid? And if it gets mixed into seeds, I grow asparagus from seeds. That's some good genetics to have out there. Very disease resistant, very good production. I put it up here in these beds that don't get watered, so maybe the production will still be pretty good while getting very little inputs. This is a blue flax. I love these little flowers. Every one of these little blue flowers lasts for less than a day. This shows the color a little bit better. It's a pretty bright bluish purple. And it just blooms and blooms and blooms. Even this little plant, this is a first year plant I grew from seed. It has bloomed quite a bit. These blanket flowers, or Goblin Gaillardia, whatever it is, are pretty popular with some bugs right here. Got something, what is that? Kind of a weird critter is that? Anyway, this Goblin Gaillardia blanket flower, whatever you want to call it, is really pretty. There's a little bit of variation. You can see those blooms in the back have like a little bit more of a pink tint to them. But overall, they've bloomed a lot. They still look good whenever the petals fall off. Elizabeth has made me very conscious of how flowers die. She rates flowers by how ugly they die. And a lot of flowers die really ugly if you don't get out there and pick them. Well, I ain't picking all these. And the blanket flower just fades to those little fuzzy balls. They don't get ugly as they die. So that's a bonus on our weird little rating system. This is a seedling rhubarb. This is the best rhubarb I have in the whole place. Nice, very big leaves, nice stalks. And I'm not harvesting any because it's a first year plant, but next year I'm going to harvest some off of this plant because it has really grown well. It's the only one up here that did okay. Here's some more snapdragons. Here's one in bloom. I think this is Day and Night or Prince or something. Maybe it's a dragon. I don't know. Some kind of snapdragon that's really pretty. Red and white bicolor. I'm a sucker for bicolors. This is Spotted Bee Balm. Doing well. And some more bee balm. Oh, hey, I haven't seen these yet. This is a regular bee balm that's a Spielarten mix. So it's like it's a regular bee balm instead of these weird pagoda, is what they call them, style blooms, where they're stacked in a weird way. Get off of me, critter. But this bee balm is just now starting to bloom in the beginning of September. These are all seeds, grown from seeds this spring. There's some more spotted bee balm. Some more blanket flowers that aren't blooming nearly as much. More bee balm. This one's kind of spilling out all over the place. And then a blanket flower. I like this little bed with flax and blanket flowers right here along the driveway. And then I'm going to hop the long way up there. There is, years ago, I got on a marigold kick and grew a bunch of marigolds. And that one just grew from seed from years ago from having some marigolds growing around here. All right, this bed has just got planted. Some of the beds still aren't planted, but there are irises in these rows and daylilies in these rows on the upper side. So all daylilies on the upper side, irises on the bottom side. There's some weeds starting to try to grow through my mulch, but I'm going to come up here and plant some of that later today. Got some more flowers from an older lady that's 94 up in town. And I want to talk about trees, but I will talk about trees in a different video, probably next year. Also, I should mention, I put in flowers in front of the terrace. I'll just walk up there instead of zooming in. So some of the flowers have done very well. That blanket flower is growing like crazy. It really likes those conditions. Some of the blanket flowers are hanging on. Hold on a second, I'm tangled on bird netting I have piled up here in the grass. And this spotted bee balm is going crazy. Right here. Got some, also on a different vein, have some alfalfa that I sowed up in the field for nitrogen fixing and for hand cutting hay and stuff like that. And it blooms a lot, grows extremely well right here, and I just left it, and it's been fairly popular with pollinators, not as much as the other flowers down the hill, but still quite interesting. And then I'll go ahead and mention it, since I'm here, persimmons. I'm still waiting on persimmons, but really looking forward to trying persimmons. That tree and another tree have, I think, 9 total between the two, which is incredible for a tree that isn't really 4 feet tall on that one, and the other one's up around 5.5 feet tall. But really looking forward to trying some persimmons. They are already bigger than any wild persimmon that I have ever tasted around here. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that's the garden in a nutshell in September. Still growing, still kicking out food, tired and slowing down, but doing exactly what I want it to do. It's mostly on autopilot. We just have to pick it and tend it, pick a few weeds here and there in the mulch. But overall, for coming through a really hot week, hard, dry conditions at this point, it's doing really well.